All right, it took a while, but football is back in Foxboro. So are we. Boston Herald office, Doug Kyed, Andrew Callahan together. Same shot, Pats and Affairs. We were recording Tuesday. Drake Maye just spoke. David Andrews did as well. Juwan Bentley, Jonathan Jones, and Jacoby Brissett. And this isn't a live show. This is only a live show to everyone who's basically in the media room with us right now if they haven't gone to lunch. This is not live for you on YouTube or wherever you might be listening. Thank you for that. We have a mega Patriots training camp preview. The reason I say it's a live show is because my voice certainly carries as it tends to do. So to everyone listening nearby, I'm going to say, I'm sorry you can't be in here with us, but I wish I were you being able to listen to this live show because we have a lot to cover. Things that were said today. Drake Maye, who could start week one, and that's not from Doug, it's not from me, it's from Drake Maye. All of the offense, all of the defense, final thoughts, bold predictions, and more. But let's start with what just happened, what you've already written or you're about to write. Like, what struck you most, bottom line, about Drake Maye press conference today with first training camp practice coming tomorrow?
Well, during the spring, Drake Maye was insistent there was no depth chart, and then he came up today and said that Jacoby Brissett, as of right now, is the starting quarterback. He did obviously leave the door open for Drake Maye to start week one. All he said was that he has to outplay him during the summer. It has nothing to do with the offensive line. It has nothing to do with the wide receivers. They're not insistent on redshirting Drake Maye. He can still pass Jacoby Brissett, but he has to do that. It's not like they're entering as like 1A and 1B. Jacoby Brissett, as of this point, has a head start on Drake Maye based on what they did in the spring. And I thought that was interesting that he was no longer saying there's no depth chart, we'll mix guys in and out. Right. No. He was saying Jacoby Brissett, as of right now, is our starter.
I agree. I'm not surprised by it because I think it also got to what he called the word of the day because he just kept repeating it. And this was I think the best we've seen from Drake Maye, not in the sense that he's being honest or himself, but I think he checked all of the boxes that PR might have advised him, like steer clear of these, third rails, put it this way. And there was no, as I once wrote, kind of OJ that he spilled on himself unnecessarily. Right. But that point, to go back to how I started here, underscored competition. Like, you can't say Drake can't win the job if everyone else's job is to prove that you belong, because that removes the possibility that he is just flat out the best quarterback in camp, which could absolutely happen. The thing for me that was interesting was him just acknowledging, hey, the point of this season is really a fact-finding mission. But the word he used was foundation, right? Who are the good young players? Who are the old players that we want to build a foundation basically for next year and beyond? Because I think we all get that, but it's another thing to voice in a way that he's unafraid of. Yeah, this is the truth. I'll tell you, even though players in the locker room want to win every week, and we're going to try, but if we don't expect to anyway, and that's not what really this season is about.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very true. This team's probably not going to be very good. After the schedule came out, they weren't favored in a single game. They have an NFL worst 4.5 win total, over under. So no one is expecting the Patriots to do well. And obviously, like you said, the players all want to win. They want to be as good as possible. But it is good to come into this with the reality of the situation, and that's that Patriots were not very good last year. I think they did make improvements, but I also don't think that they've improved themselves to be an 11 or 12 win team. They do still need to see what they are moving forward and who they want to keep rolling with. That being said, though, they certainly have extended a lot of guys already heading into this season. So it seems like they have a pretty good idea of a lot of the guys that they do want to work with moving forward.
Right. Among them, though his extension was not the most notable and certainly not the longest, was David Andrews, who we last spoke to. And it's funny because we got back into this room. Again, we've had 4 press conferences before he spoke. Okay, what stuck out to you? You and I said, not much.
Right.
It's not because he wasn't honest with us or there weren't good questions or good answers. It's just as far as we're packaging the highlights of the day, David Andrews is probably left on the cutting room floor. But there was one thing that he said, because we're asking about his new position coach, Scott Peters, ex-offensive lineman in the NFL, very technical guy, ran a jiu-jitsu gym, and is just very hands-on. But he said, look, athletes have a good BS meter. And so to me, I think the value in Mayo speaking some of the hard truths, whether it's, hey, this place sucked, make it better in a way we all knew Bill did, but also to the media of like, we have enough awareness of this is where we are, helps players. Even if that's not what you want to hear, they know it's the truth. Vegas knows it's the truth. The upside for this team is about 7 to 8 wins. Unless you ask Aaron Schatz, who just continues to shock me with his system projections, which we talked about last week in this podcast. But anyway, I think it's a great start, which we're finally getting into the football stuff where we don't have to talk about, Mayo's answer to this or Judon's tweet about that. We'll have stuff to evaluate and matter. Yeah. So this is kind of the end of the, PR grading, as it were, between the end of the draft and now. But so far, if we were still grading, these guys would get an A.
Yeah, and I mean, Gerard did hit on Judon and Godchaux a little
Yes.
bit, their contract situations. He did say that he'd like to do anything possible to keep them around this season. It's pretty obvious that Matthew Judon needs some sort of contract amendment because he's only set to make like $6 million in base salary this season since they borrowed so much to give him the raise last year. So in all reality, that would probably come through some sort of signing bonus, contract guarantee, plus incentives. I think you probably have to get somewhere close to like 13 million overall somehow.
Well, you did this today and hand up bad teammate. I've not read the piece yet, but I know we were discussing it, and you have good relationships with people across the league and into the salary cap and projections, and like, what does that deal look like if you were the team?
I think that you take most of his salary this season, which, like I said, is like 6 or 7 million.
Yeah, 6.5.
You probably like leave $1 million left in base salary, guarantee the rest in a signing bonus. You probably also throw in maybe another $2 to $3 million on top of that in signing bonus, add a void year so that you can spread out the cap a little bit, and then also throw in, let's say, like $2 to $3 million in incentives. I think that really the way that you have to structure this is you have to get back up to whatever number he had last year, which is like 13 or 14 million. So that's a lot of ground to make up. But I do think that there's a way to do it, especially with the way the Patriots are with the salary cap right now. They've got a ton of room this year, next year, moving forward here. So you want Matthew Judon to stick around. He's in kind of a tough spot as a guy who's 31, going to be 32 soon, missed most of last season. So he can't be demanding $20 million a year or anything like that. But I think that it's at least fair to get him back up to that $13, $14 million per year mark. Devon Godchaux, it's tougher to figure out because he's already due over $7 million in base salary this season. I was finding a hard time finding a great player comp, someone who's around that same age of like 29 years old, who got a big deal this offseason. DJ Reader with the Lions signed for 2 years, $22 million. He's a nose tackle. He's around the same age. That's like a very similar contract to the one that Godchaux got as an extension in 2022. But Reader is also a lot more versatile. Whereas since Devon Godchaux, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but since Devon Godchaux joined the Patriots in 2021, he has 41 total pressures. DJ Reader had 34 last year alone. So yes, they're similar body types. They're both play around the same sort of snaps or whatever, but one guy is much more valuable in passing downs than Devon Godchaux is. Godchaux is probably better on rundowns, but it's just hard to find that perfect comp. Whereas I think in all reality, the best situation for both parties is add $1 million or $2 million in incentives or something, maybe guarantee this salary, and then just maybe move on after this year, if that's what it comes down to. But I can't see them giving him a lot of money to stick around or give him a contract extension that's worth a ton.
I'm with you because the $7.15 million base salary that he has, the reason it's an issue for him, despite being the second highest in the team, is none of it is guaranteed.
Right.
So that's the way to say, hey, you'll probably get this money anyway if you continue to play 17 games per season, which he has done the last 2 years. But there's no incentive for us, given your standing within the team and within the market, which is still, I think, between the 20th and 30th high paid defensive tackle in the league based on base salary alone, to which he would say, well, that could turn zero if I tear my ACL tomorrow, is the numbers that you mentioned. Because, say, the counter argument to, if I'm Devon Godchaux's agent, well, you're not going to measure me in pressures the way you use me on first and second down. I can play from the 0 technique all the way up to the 3, maybe 4, not often 5 because no one's on the nose, but that's not an accurate way to capture my value. To which I would say, as the Patriots, well, your run stop percentage, meaning the percentage of snaps when the other team is running the ball, and I'm directly responsible, being Devon Godchaux, for a stop, is 6.7%. Which is league average for defensive tackles.
Right.
So if you want to be a run defense guy, first of all, you're pretty well paid as it is, and you're not outperforming this contract that we gave you 2 years ago. Granted, we meaning a different regime than Bill Belichick. So that's harder. I think they can play hardball with him. I don't have an issue with that. There's not a great replacement, but it's just, hey, you're being compensated properly. I would just maybe guarantee a little bit more of that. Or add in some incentives, and that's it. But Judon flatly needs a new deal, and that there's no debating that.
Yeah, I mean, Godchaux got a good deal 2 years ago. That 2 years, $22 million deal is what guys are still earning now. He just already got paid most of it, and I can understand for him being I'm only gonna make $7 million this year, and it's well, that's because you already made $13 million last year and the year before. It all adds up. So it is a tough situation, but in all reality, I think I don't know if anything gets done there. It's kind of similar to Lawrence Guy's situation last year, where he wanted something. He wanted some sort of new contract, and it just never came.
Breaking news. We've got a young, exciting underdog team in Boston that's making a run for the playoffs. No, it's not the Patriots. Well, not the Patriots yet. It's the Red Sox. And if you've been following this season, you know that the Red Sox have been a hotter ticket ever since the season started. I want you to get down to Fenway with Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, where you will find killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, including those pesky fees, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Guys, you've heard me talk about Game Time before. And look, whether you are in New England, whether you're down in New York, whether you're out on the West Coast, you can browse through the Game Time app to find any seat you want. Customize your spot, flash deals, zone deals. I've done this before, gone to a Yankee series. You could go to a makeup date, whatever it is to get you back into baseball with one of the best seasons we've had so far, especially for the Red Sox. And you can do this, again, with the lowest price guaranteed. I don't care where you get your tickets, but they should be now with the Game Time app, which you can download right now. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All you need to do is create an account and redeem this code, CLNS, for $20 off your first purchase. It could be MLB, WNBA, concerts, etc. Just go to Game Time today. Find last-minute tickets in the lowest price guaranteed. From old defensive tackles to the young quarterback we all want to talk about. Actually, hit pause. The young receivers. I reported yesterday, Javon Baker had a fracture in his thumb, which kept him out of minicamp. Before that, a few OTA practices. He's cleared. He's ready to go. That's per Drake Maye. Marcellus Dials, 6th-round rookie corner out of South Carolina, also good to go. Thumbs up there. Okay, now Drake Maye. Here's the deal. Every single day, every single practice, every single drill, every single period, every single rep, eyes are going to be on this kid. And I'm going to say a lot over the next 2 weeks in different places. The truth is in the trends. We need a larger sample is basically what that means. But we're going to analyze everything individually anyway and put a certain weight on it. So when you're looking at him over the next 4 weeks as these trends develop, what do you ultimately want to see before we get to whether he will start in week 1, just to show this is definitive, measurable progress?
I'm probably not answering this the right way, but honestly, what do I want to see out of Drake Maye over the next 4 weeks? I want him to win the starting job. Like, first-round picks are supposed to start. Mac Jones started in 2021 as the 15th overall pick. Like, Caleb Williams has no competition right now with the Bears. Obviously, he was taken first overall, not third overall. But, like, I feel like these situations in Chicago and Washington feel a lot different than the Drake Maye situation in New England, where, like, no one is saying in Chicago, like, whoever their backup even is like, he's the starter right now. We'll see if Caleb Williams can pass him. Like, you want your third overall pick to be the week 1 starter. So that's what I want to see out of him. I want to see him beat out Jacoby Brissett. And it's not the end of the world if he doesn't do it. It doesn't mean that his career is going to tank or anything like that. And it obviously is a different situation that Mac Jones was entering in 2021 compared to the one that Drake Maye is entering now against Jacoby Brissett. But in all reality, Jones was the 15th overall pick. Maye's the 3rd overall pick. So you would expect Maye to be in front of where Jones was in 2021. Cam Newton and Jacoby Brissett aren't perfect comps by any means, but, like, they're not that different, right? Like, Cam Newton in 2021 versus Jacoby Brissett in 2024. Like, I know that they're far different in the type of players that they used to be and now are and everything. But, like, in all reality, both guys, when you look at them, are around, like, the 25th to 30th best starting quarterbacks in the league. Right?
So here's where I differ. It's not about the quarterbacks because, Jacoby Brissett's living in the same neighborhood, if not, like, next to him in the cul-de-sac. It's the situations they're stepping into. And when we look at Chicago, the way they've loaded up, not only just with the receivers, but up front, that's a position you can put a rookie quarterback in, and he's insulated, much like Mac Jones 3 years ago, which we all know and watched. Jane Daniels in Washington, better receiving core, a comparable offensive line to this group, I think. And then you're going, who's starting over there? And then who's next to him?
Right.
And that to me is the concern, because I know Devin McCourty came on with me a couple months ago and said, hey, I just visited with Gerard and Matthew Slater. They want a stable situation before Drake goes in there. They're not in a rush. Again, this season is as much a football NFL 17-game, 18-week campaign as it is a fact-finding mission. They feel like they obviously know enough about Drake Maye. That's why he was the number 3 overall pick. But you don't know about the situation around him. And that goes for players, rookies like Caden Wallace and Lane Robinson and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And if those are the players around him, if they can't do their jobs, catching his passes and providing him pass protection, I don't want to risk the quarterback of the future. Now, again, this isn't to say Gerard was lying to us. an hour or two ago when he said he could start, but the situation is so starkly different because we're all going to do this. Well, Mac started. Why can't Drake Maye? He was picked 12 picks higher. He's more impressive physically. He's also being reworked from the ground up with the footwork, the understanding of the system, the play calls, and then you get into the reads, like the complicated stuff. He needs to answer my own question, master the simple, boring processes so they're automatic. The footwork is there, his progression reads, and protecting the football, because that was the detractor. If you didn't like Drake Maye, we're like, hey, do you want to watch second half of UNC last year when they're down in games and he's throwing off his back foot and all these ridiculous plays? You need to iron that bleep out of his game because that cannot become a habit. And if it is, that'll define the rest of his career.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Gerard Mayo might have been lying to it, but he did say that he's going to be looking at Drake Maye in a vacuum. So I said it's not going to be based on the O-line. It's just going to be whether he's better than Jacoby Brissett.
I believe that, but I think the issue will be, or the difference, the catch is the bar is going to be so high. You know what I mean? Like he has to blow away Jacoby Brissett, the 25th best quarterback in the league, meaning you're not 24th, you're not 23rd. Drake Maye looks like an average NFL starting quarterback in this environment. So again, I'm not saying Gerard was lying. I just think it's the bar so high we're not counting him reaching there. And if it is, well, good, because then he's good enough to carry us and maybe paper over these issues. And I just think that's unrealistic, but I could be wrong.
No, I mean, I just think it's possible. I just think it's possible that he can come in and start. And I don't know. I mean, like, I just think it's an interesting vibe where like Jacoby Brissett was signed to be a bridge starter or veteran backup. Like that's why he was signed. So I guess I just don't understand rallying so much behind Jacoby Brissett and being like, he's our star, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. I just think that I would almost prefer, I think, to hear like, yep, it's an open competition rather than hearing like Jacoby Brissett's our starter. I know it sets expectations, that like lowers expectations for Drake Maye, and maybe they get out of hand if Gerard Mayo comes in and says like it's an open competition. But I still would just like to hear that it's an even chance between Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett to start week one, based on where they took him, based on his upside, based on where this team is, and probably not going to be good anyway this season. So
two things on this, and then we'll go to, I want to hear what you think actually happens. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, and most likely for Drake Maye is Jacoby Brissett is on board with this. Like the first question he got was, hey, how's it feel? QB1, Gerard just told us. He's like, look, that's what you want.
Yeah.
Feels good. But I know I have to earn this every day. And he didn't say this in a canned cliche kind of delivery. That's what you're supposed to say. He knows it. He's been around and what happens when guys lose their jobs, because he's done that, and when guys earn jobs, which he's also done around the league. The second thing I would say is this. The part that Gerard said is Jacoby Brissett is our starter at this point in time.
Yeah.
And my pitch all along, not all along, more recently has been Jacoby should be the starter, all first-team reps the next 2 weeks of camp that lead into the preseason opener against Carolina on August 8th. That's it. If Drake pulls into a tie then or something close, then start to divide the reps, because this is also as much about everyone around the quarterback, and we're talking about offensive line, the new receivers, rookies especially, getting quality reps.
Right.
If Drake is there and harried and pressured and doesn't know where to go, that's fine. That's a rookie quarterback. But you're losing value for everyone else who is supposed to be growing with him. Right. Jacoby is there to make sure he knows where to be and what to do. And if Drake can check those two boxes in 2 weeks, by all means, here's a couple for starting reps.
Right. And I mean, that's even what we saw back in 2021.
Right.
Is that Cam was like the top guy for most of the summer, I think. And then he didn't get COVID. He just didn't. There was like some sort of
he left and went to Atlanta.
Yes.
And was not supposed to leave the state, or failed to inform somebody he was leaving the state, which is just one of these, oh, what a silly mistake by me. Then Mac Jones took the job.
Yeah. And then Mac Jones was the guy and he took the job. So I don't foresee anything similar to that happening, but that was a situation where like Mac Jones earned the job, or it seemingly earned the job pretty late in that process. It was like late August.
You know what it was? It was a steady build. And so that's why I think underscoring, like at this point in time, Jacoby's a starter. We understand that what he's done. He's been in the system also. Like the system mastery, the playbook, and the language is nothing new for him.
Right.
Like it is most of this offense. So I think that's where Mac had a good preseason game in all three outings.
Yeah.
Let's just see Drake do that once.
Right.
And then kind of carry the conversation. But really quickly, best case scenario is him winning the job?
Yeah, him winning the job and being like a top 15 quarterback.
Okay. Wow. Top 15. Worst case.
I mean, CJ Stroud did it last year.
But, okay, my counter would be the last quarterback to do what CJ Stroud did was Andrew Luck in 2012.
Herbert was pretty good as a rookie too, wasn't he?
I think as far as the winning and driving everything and exceeding expectations. Like Herbert definitely was really good as a rookie, and Tony Romo was having Romo-gasms on air in his debut against the Chiefs, which I remember obviously very vividly. But I think as far as guys who carried the offense as much as he did, like he at least stepped into a great receiving core, decent enough offensive line. Herbert did. Yeah.
Stroud, not as much.
Good offensive line, I think underrated, but I think he was.
Yeah, receiving core, I think he made those guys probably better than they all had like good seasons because of Stroud.
Right.
Worst case scenario, I guess it's just that he doesn't start this season. Like he just redshirts the whole year, and that Jacoby Brissett is the starter all season. Most likely, probably is that gets a job like 4 or 5 weeks in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Best case, I'm with you. I don't think he's top 15, but I think you have a guy who wins the job outright, does enough, hangs around, and I think you still have to work some of the gunslinger out of him, which is both appealing in that Josh Allen makes those throws to beat the Patriots, and then those same throws get intercepted when he's losing to other teams for the most part over the last few years. Worst case scenario, you just nailed it. Not good enough and or gets hurt in mop-up duty, and it's just we're going to shelve you, and we're still here 12 months going, what do they have in Drake Maye? Most likely, I think he pulls close to Jacoby Brissett, but is not good enough to take the job week 1. And then I think we wait until November, because I wrote about this on Sunday. We are all underrating the fact that Jacoby Brissett's career interception percentage is less than half of what Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi did a year ago. So you're doubling the number of drives that were just dead ends, handing the ball to the other team. One every 28 pass attempts for Mac Jones. The Patriots now get to hold on to that and find out just where things can go when your quarterback is not a mole for the other team. And so Brissett holds on to the ball, and that I think will allow him to hold on to his job through probably around Thanksgiving. Okay, enough quarterbacks. What interests you most about the rest of the offense? Is it as simple as the rookie receivers? Where are you looking?
For me, it's the fact that for the first time since 1999, it's a different offense. It's not the Earhart Perkins system. It's bringing in West Coast elements with Alex Van Pelt. And for me, the most interesting thing about that is that I don't think this will be as complicated and as complex and as difficult to learn for young players. So I think that there's a very legitimate chance that Jalen Polk or Javon Baker could contribute from day one. And that there's not that that overhanging stress of all right, what do I have to do everything absolutely perfectly? Otherwise, I'm going to get benched like DeMario Douglas did last season.
Or any receiver Brady ever worked with.
Right, any receiver that Brady ever worked with that was trying to learn the Josh McDaniels offense or Bill O'Brien or whoever it was throughout the years, Charlie Weiss. So that's really interesting to me that this is not necessarily going to be as complicated and complex, and it is going to be easier for these guys to pick up, and maybe you can actually play the most physically gifted guys right away rather than the ones who just know the system best.
It's such a great point. And you and I have talked about that before, but I think there's a coherence and identity. Like the system itself makes sense. Yeah. This is not 2 years ago trying to take a store brand knockoff version of the Rams offense and shoehorn it in with parts of Josh's system. It's not Bill O'Brien going, I've got some Alabama elements, but we can't really block. So now we're going to go back to basics. Oh, now we have to start over and it's week 5 because we can't do anything. No, this is we're going to get really good at outside zone. We're going to have bootlegs off of that. And you're not going to know if we do this well enough, which it is, until the ball either gets handed off or Drake Maye or Jacoby Brissett pulls it back. And there are more elements, but the standard, the drop back passing game is fairly common. West Coast concepts, even the drills underpinning all of this that Alex Van Pelt is going to run are from the 70s, which is not a bad thing. It works. They've lived on. But there is an identity. And how long did we hear, and Drake Maye will say this, but I think specific to Van Pelt, you're a game plan team in the sense that you game plan every week, but your identity no longer will shift week to week to week. They might bulk up and play a little bit more 12 personnel. This is still going to be outside zone, play action, deep shots. That's what this is. So how committed are they when things look bad to that? Well, interesting, because that's the test of your identity. How committed are you to this? But that's the other part of this is you'll get to learn faster because we're going to do the same few things over and over again with enough variety to keep you off balance. Because the Shanahan offenses, and this is old school Shanahan, were the ones that used to give Belichick, and even the early 2000s, the most fits. Because there's no real great schematic solution to, did he hand it off or did he not? And if you guess wrong, you're in real trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
What are we missing aside from the point you just brought up when we talk about this offense? It's a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of young receivers. We just talked about the scheme and the concepts as a whole. What's missing in the discourse?
This might run counter to the next question, maybe your point in the next question, but I actually don't think the overall talent on the offensive line is that bad.
Okay.
I don't know where these guys are going to play. The Patriots don't know where these guys are going to play. But like Chukwuma Okorafor was a pretty good right tackle for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it was with the Steelers. Michael Wenu, one of the best guards in the NFL, certainly a top, above average right tackle in the NFL. David Andrews, an above average center in the NFL. Sidney Sow made a lot of progress last season. Nick Leverett was a decent player for the Bucs. Like there's Cole Strange, former first round pick, came on strong before he got hurt last season. Obviously it seems like he's going to miss the first half of the season or the, beginning part of the season, but there's enough talent on the offensive line to make this, I'd say, like an average group. And I think that because there's so much uncertainty, it does make the group overall kind of concerning because you don't know where each one of these guys is necessarily going to play. But I mean, like Ken Wallace, 2nd round pick as well that I didn't mention. Layden Robinson, a 4th round pick. So I actually do think that the offensive line has a decent amount of talent. And I think that is one thing that maybe isn't talked about enough, I guess, or maybe it is something that's missing. But yeah, that would be my point there.
Okay, I'm going to shelve that for the next point because you can see the rundown that's right here. No one else can. But I'll say very quickly, based on the limited access we had during OTAs and minicamp, the starting personnel groups for the offense didn't have more than 2 receivers.
Right.
It was a 12 personnel offense, meaning you had 1 running back and 2 tight ends. So Austin Hooper, speaking of like backhanded compliments, store brand version, like he's basically Hunter Henry, just in a lesser career path. 4th team in 4 years, might be a starter here. And so that obviously unlocks some, I don't want to say like unpredictability, right? Like, but you know what they're going to run, just how are they going to package this? Now, ideally, you would have a 3rd receiver who's better than Austin Hooper, and they say, well, we're just going to play, KJ Osborne, whomever it is. But this might be the same as we were talking 3 years ago with Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Again, a 2 tight end attack. I think they're going to figure that out. But we saw that. So the next question here is more concerning receivers or offensive line. You clearly think receivers. So let me just go to the offensive line because that's my answer.
I will say that I love that we're having maybe this is a 2 tight end offense. like conversation for maybe like the 6th time in 6 years. Like we keep waiting for 2011 to happen again and just never like the Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith thing was so obvious that they were going to be running a 2 tight end set in 2021. And then they didn't. It was just like fascinating. Maybe it is finally this year, but like it wasn't last year with Gesicki and Hunter Henry. It wasn't with Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Maybe Austin Hooper is the guy, but no, I just love that we're carrying that on for another year.
So we've made progress because no one said Boston TE party.
Right.
And no one's made reference to Rob Gronkowski or Aaron Hernandez just yet. So I think we've grown up. Now, if we did, that would be probably a fireable offense. Just like shut the pod down. Everyone stop watching or listening. Because obviously it's not realistic. And I'm not saying, again, that'll happen. It's just like, okay, of all the choices they had to start camp, that's the way that they want to go. Hooper, also someone who's been in the offense. You're not as concerned about the offensive line. I can see the talent argument in the upside there that you just laid out. One of my concerns, though, about this group is that it's led by a guy who, I'll just say, I don't know how good Scott Peters is at his job. David Andrews has had a lot of nice things to say about Scott Peters. And as a straight shooter, I would tend to trust what David Andrews has to say. But we all have to learn because the Browns did not make a huge effort to retain him or the other assistants that Alex Van Pelt brought with him. In fact, hired someone from the outside to replace Bill Callahan and Scott Peters as the offensive line coach. So my concern with not just the offensive line, but the offense as a whole would be there are a lot of new position coaches here where as much as you probably upgraded over that hodgepodge staff last year, which we all went down. Like Vinny Cincinnati played defense. He's still in his late 20s, early 30s. Ross Douglas was a linebacker and defensive back. And now he's coaching receivers. And where's Troy Brown at? It's a lot of guys who were either passed over. And I just don't trust them in a way that a 4th round pick 10 years ago, Layden Robinson comes in. Oh, Scar's going to take care of that. He'll develop him. He'll be Shaq Mason 2.0. And I think Layden Robinson could be that as a young player, maybe not as a proven veteran. That uncertainty has me a little bit more cautious. Plus the fact that if a core forward doesn't work out at left tackle, 2 of your 5 spots are now question marks.
Right. To that, I would say the Patriots wide receivers coach this season was a quality control coach at the University of Washington last season. So there are concerns overall on the offensive coaching staff. And I think that Tyler Hughes could wind up doing a great job for the Patriots. But I think that that was a hire that I think a lot of people were kind of surprised by. And that it's not the biggest reason why I'm concerned about the wide receivers, but it's among them. I would just say that they're like Kendrick Bourne coming off the torn ACL. We don't know where he's at right now. KJ Osborne, I think we all expected him to be like this, like kind of stabilizing force in the wide receiver group because he was kind of a 500 yard per year guy with the Vikings. We'll see how he does in training camp, but he never stood out in the spring, despite there being injuries and absences at wide receiver. He was just a little bit invisible, I'd say.
And let me pause to add this. That was not just, the media was there for 2 or 3 practices and KJ Osborne had a bad day.
Right.
That sentiment of, this is it. I've heard from within the building. And who knows how the rest of the summer goes. But like KJ Osborne, the numbers matched up with the player that you saw out there. Is like, he's a number 3 guy. And we have a lot of those already. Yeah.
And then, Demario Douglas, we all have, I think everyone has high expectations for Demario Douglas, but he had 2 concussions last season. And that is concerning. Like, you can't just say, all right, Demario Douglas is going to be your 17-game starter at slot receiver based on what we saw last season with the injuries. Beyond that, you've got 2 rookies, both of which I'm high on. I like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, but neither one of those guys is a certainty.
You love Jalen Polk.
I do love Jalen Polk. I love Javon Baker too. Both of those guys I'm high on, but like you can't say that Jalen Polk's going to get 800 yards this season. You can't say that Javon Baker's going to get 500 yards this season. It's just like and then beyond that, Tyquan Thornton was bad as a rookie and even worse as a second-year player. Juju Smith-Schuster had like less than 100 yards for most of last season. Keyshawn Boutte had a great final minicamp practice, but otherwise caught 2 passes last season, despite the fact that everyone was pretty high on him coming into the summer. So there's just like at least the offensive line has Michael Wenham. At least the offensive line has David Andrews. At least they have guys that are going to be solid quality players.
Yeah, tentpole players, like starters.
At wide receiver, yes, you could say that about Kendrick Bourne, but he's coming off the torn ACL. Yes, you could say that about Demario Douglas, but he had the concussion issues. I think there's less certainty there and some of those same issues that you were talking about with coaching.
Fair. I would say you can say Jalen Polk will have 800 yards if you choose him to be your breakout pick player. And I don't know who you're going to pick for this because we're going to end on a positive note and flip the defense. My breakout player, I'm cheating a little bit. This is more like he's going to rehab his image here. He's going to be better than he was last year. And that's Antonio Gibson. And I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's an excellent fit, again, for outside zone style. You go into the deeper PFF numbers. There were a few runners in the entire league last year behind zone blocking than Antonio Gibson. He's a one cut and go type of runner. He's also 230 freaking pounds. So, they're not going to lose anything between the tackles. You need a tough yard or two. When Ramondre Stevenson just needs a breather. He's also a good pass catcher. And so they might go from we're going to be like a 2 tight end offense to maybe we're best in 21.
Right.
And both of those guys can catch passes. Both of them can run between the tackles. That complementary or that overlap, I think, will be a strength for them. And even when Stevenson inevitably misses a couple of games, because he's just a running back in the 17-game era, Gibson can step up. So what does that look like statistically? I don't know, but 800 total all-purpose yards, maybe even getting close to 1,000, plus a half dozen touchdowns. That's a higher-end outcome. But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility.
Mine's a boring one. I'm going to say City South. I think that he was good last season, and that was despite the fact that they were putting him at tackle for most of the summer, despite the fact that he hadn't played it since he was like a freshman or whatever. So I think he's going to be a really quality starting guard to start the season, and then probably even when Cole Strange comes back, they'll still find a way to include him in that starting offensive line one way or the other. So I've got high expectations for City South this season.
Okay, City South. Cosign. Any other pick, because he's a second-year player. It's a common thing.
It's tough. It's tough to find someone.
It's tough. You're either all in a Javon Baker. Hello, Fitzy. Jalen Polk. He's a second-round receiver who's probably going to play.
It's almost tough to call a rookie a breakout player.
I took a fifth-year veteran. So what you get is like a rehab.
But Demario Douglas, how much more is he going to break out than he already did last season?
The better way to put this would have been who's going to exceed consensus expectations.
Right.
And I think both of us delivered on that front.
Yeah.
Okay. Defensively. Let's start there. Let's start positive.
Sure.
Who is going to exceed consensus expectations on this side of the ball?
So I'll go Alex Austin for this one.
Okay.
Cornerback. He was a 7th round pick last season for the Bills, got waived, picked up by the Texans, waived. And then I thought he played really solid over the last quarter of the season for the Patriots. I think that there's a starting cornerback job that's up for grabs in the Patriots defense. And like, he very well could grab it. He was playing with the starters during the spring. I know that guys were out. I know Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones were out, but like, there's a group of 3 or 4 guys or 4 or 5 guys that are kind of competing for a starting cornerback role. He's among those. And I think that he's long, he's fast, and he's got some playmaking ability. Maybe it's that last gift that Bill Belichick gave the Patriots by finding another diamond in the rough at cornerback who can be the next J.C. Jackson or Jonathan Jones or whatever. And maybe that's Alex Austin. But I know that coaches are high on him. I know that he's impressed people quite a bit. And he certainly has the confidence to do it.
And we asked Jonathan Jones about that younger group, and he said AA for obviously Alex Austin, nothing more. And he didn't go on to Isaiah Bolden or Marco Wilson. And that's one press conference. Right. It's one line. There's just 2 letters.
Yeah.
But to me, the first person to come to mind in a question about who's impressing, and he's the only one of that group that you mentioned, is good news. Because, again, I think you'll find throughout the course of the season, guys a little bit more relaxed at the podium, a little bit more honest with the media, because they're not as afraid of what's going to happen in the event that they do name names in a way. I will say I checked in on this group because I think it's deeper than we give it credit for. And we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. And I was told, look, all of them did good things this spring. And not in a canned cliche, just keep you at a distance, but it was like all of them could make the team. Again, Bolden, Austin, Marco Wilson. My pick is going to be Marco Wilson because I just think we've seen it before. 2 years ago, 13 starts at the Cardinals, 3 interceptions, forced fumble, a dozen pass deflections. And that was a bad Cardinals defense. But he was a 4th round pick out of Florida. The traits are still there, 6 foot, 190 pounds or so. I think this is going to be a really good group. And ideally, one of them does emerge, not just because you get a good cost-controlled young player, but it allows Jonathan Jones then on the wrong side of 30 to be ultimate secondary utility man. You need an outside corner 1 week. You need him to play nickel. Oh, he can play free safety. And he said today he'll do whatever. And that can only happen, though, if Christian Gonzalez and Marcus Jones stay healthy, which, they're back. They're 100%. Great news. Who knows what will happen this season. But I think that's the best value for Jonathan Jones is to be that utility guy if one of these young corners step up, and hopefully they will. All right. I would assume that a bunch of guys who also could just get cut, Alex Austin, Isaiah Bolden, and Marco Wilson, are not the most interesting thing to you personally about this defense. So not the best, but just something that you're going to be locked in on tomorrow and all the practices thereafter.
For me, it's what a defense with plays not called by Steve Belichick looks like. Because it's just I think that everyone just assumes, myself included for the most part, that, all right, all the same players are back. This defense is going to be top 10 again. It's going to be the strength of the team. You don't have to worry about the defense. But in all reality, Bill Belichick is gone, who was like the ultimate defensive coordinator for the Patriots. Steve Belichick is gone. He was their defensive play caller. I know that Drake Maye was heavily involved in doing other coordinator duties. Obviously, he's now a head coach. A lot of confidence in DeMarcus Covington around the building. Everyone likes him. But we just haven't seen Drake Maye or DeMarcus Covington call plays in a regular season game. And I just want to see how different it looks. Maybe it's better. Maybe they are more aggressive. Maybe they can get after the quarterback better. Maybe they can make more plays and all those things. But there is something just so consistent about what the Patriots did year after year after year after year on defense with Bill Belichick and Steve Belichick so heavily involved that you can kind of count on them as being at least above average. I think that's still the case, but it's just different. And I want to see how these changes look on the field and how different things really are now that DeMarcus Covington is going to be calling plays and Drake Maye is that guy who's kind of overseeing everything. So
I'm with you. I'm just a little off center from this, not in a play calling sense, but I'm curious structurally if, again, these guys have now been given the keys to Bill Belichick's defense. That's what it is, the system that they're running. And they're going to abide by all the principles and the techniques and the drills underpinning this whole system that's worked very, very well. And they don't know much else beyond this. But might they just play a little more 4-down defense, which you and I have talked about off air on this podcast before, and something Christian Barmore brought up in the spring. I was like, that's interesting. And it's not that the Patriots haven't played 4 down before, but that kind of single gap, and they're more of a hybrid defense. You'll single gap over here, you'll 2 gap over there, depending on your personnel available and the opponent, et cetera, et cetera. That to me is okay. If they were allowed to design the game plan from start to finish, because Bill and Steve are not here, what does this look like? Because to stick with the 4 down example, and maybe it's just playing a lot more dime where you have, the safeties are no longer at the second level, whatever it might be. Matt Judon, Christian Barmore, Daniel Akawale, or Devon Godchaux, and then pick Keon White or Dietrich Wise on the opposite end. That's a front I don't want to mess with if I'm an opposing offense. So what are the tweaks, the styles? Because the roster's the same, you're bringing it back. I think the principles will be there, but because of the experience together, and it's just such a veteran-laden group, all schematic possibilities are on the table. So how deep into the bag do they reach? And when they come out, are they finding different things that, obviously Bill could do whatever he wanted, but are they starkly different from what we saw? Or are they just running it back in virtually every sense?
Yeah, I think that, it is going to be interesting to see how much more aggressive they are, how much different it looks. And I think that they've got a lot of talent. It's just about putting it all together.
Okay. We have 2 more on the defense, and we'll get out of here with the final thought on training camp, which again starts Wednesday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. practice, same Thursday and Friday. There's a big assumption, even Aaron Schatz said this will be the 3rd best defense in the league.
Right.
They're going to be back to a top 5 level. And it's because Matt Judon's back, and Christian Gonzalez is too. I don't think that's enough. Aside from just good health, what else do they need to do or achieve or show you this summer to say, okay, I'm fully on board? Maybe it's nothing.
I think that you need either Josh Uche to return to his 2022 level or Keon White to take a big step forward this season. Because we all expected Josh Uche to still be a double-digit sack guy last year, and he just simply wasn't. I know he was asked to do some different things, but once Judon went out, it's not like Josh Uche started playing 60% of snaps. He was still that kind of pass rush specialist and just wasn't able to get after the quarterback as much. I think a big part of that was Judon not being on the field. And then Keon White was great last summer. We saw dominant traits from him, and then he disappeared a little bit during the regular season. So I know it sounds really simple to say you just need one of those guys, but you do, because it can't just be Matthew Judon getting after the quarterback. You need someone else to be that, near double-digit sack guy or that heavy pressure guy to really work off of Matthew Judon. I don't think that there's a guarantee that one of those guys is going to be that.
So because, again, this is a veteran-laden defense, assuming good health, and that's what you just have to do in July. This isn't to say that will hold true. The pieces that I think you would point to, what else do you need to say? The positions of the players have to be those who are less proven, right? That you don't know what's going to come from them. And you hit on one of them. Keon White is a huge piece to me because that is potentially a 3-down player, holding the edge down on 1st and 2nd down against the run, kicking inside, potentially an interior rusher on 3rd down. And Mayo had some nice things to say about Keon White. We'll see. He's an older player, so physically there's less to tap into there. But from a skill development standpoint, could make a year or 2 leap. The other player to me is Marte Mapu, because Duggar and Jabril Peppers, highly athletic, rangy, good safeties, still better at the 2nd level, are not really backpedal type of players. Right. You're not trusting them in isolation and man-to-man coverage, or really as a single deep safety. All of them, as I said last week, can rotate enough that no one really gets burned because you can't pick on them, but you're not trusting any of them to hold it down. Mapu is in a similar mold. And if it's not going to be him, you're asking Jalen Hawkins, ex-Charger and Falcon last year, to hold down that back end and play in that role. I just want to see what that year 2 leap looks like from him, because is he making it as a linebacker, hybrid safety? Can he play back deep? He got roasted in quarters coverage down in Miami, losing a touchdown to Tyreek Hill. Not exactly a cardinal sin. It happens to basically everyone in the NFL playing defense. But I don't know what that looks like, because I don't think they've clearly defined who that player will be. I have high hopes. He's incredibly instinctive. But I think they need more from him as opposed to just, we'll still see you tinker around. You need a 3rd safety if you're going to be a 3 safety base defense.
As part of our preview, we had a surprise cut candidate. And I did not pick Marte Mapu. But if someone was going to say an absolutely insane, out of your mind surprise cut candidate, it might be the guy that Bill Belichick took in the 3rd round last season, who's an older prospect
and wanted all draft process, and that was it. When they were preparing him the draft, I can tell you he's Bill's guy. We'll see.
Who doesn't have an obvious position on defense, is an older prospect, small school guy that the Patriots wanted to trade down from that spot, couldn't find a taker, and then wound up taking Marte Mapu. Like, I don't think I think Marte Mapu is going to be on the team. I think that he could still be a very good player as long as he's playing near the line of scrimmage, either as a linebacker or as a safety. He's highly intelligent. I think he'd be a great leader on the team. There's a distinct possibility that in 2 years he's like one of the best players on the team. But like, if you were looking at someone who was a Bill Belichick draft pick, then maybe the rest of the team is like, I don't know. Like, he would be the guy from last year's draft.
Yeah.
Once again, don't think it's going to happen, but I had the thought while I was putting together the preview and just figured that I would spit it out on a podcast as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Last thing about the defense, what, if any, positions concern you? Because I believe they'll get to be top 5 here again. I think you're on board with that.
Yeah.
They were 32nd, worst in the league in adjusted games lost last year. So from a health standpoint, it probably should not get any worse than it was a year ago, and they were still in the neighborhood of top 10. But if something is going to pop up in a way that goes, ooh, you'd love to have an extra player here, what position is it? So
I hate to have like kind of a cop-out answer about this, but it's either none or kind of all of them. Whereas like in all reality, there's nothing that I'm like overly concerned about on defense. But I think that you can pick apart almost every single position group. At cornerback, you really only have Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones as like definitive starting caliber players. Mm-hmm. Marcus Jones, maybe he's a slot, maybe he's a really short outside cornerback. The Patriots have never really fully defined his role. He would be the favorite to be that third cornerback, but I just don't have the most confidence in that. At safety, I love Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. I think they're both great safeties. But as you mentioned, there's not that prototypical free safety. We still don't really know what Marte Mapu is. At linebacker, Juwan Bentley, Jelani Tavai, and Sione Takitaki, you know exactly what they are, but none of those guys is like a top 10 linebacker in the NFL. And then at defensive tackle, they replaced Lawrence Guy with Armon Watts. I think that is a little bit of a downgrade. Like, we'll see how it all works out, but Lawrence Guy was very dependable. You knew what you were getting out of him. I can understand why they cut him for the money. Armon Watts is a cheaper player. It just, I don't know exactly what that one-for-one replacement looks like. I think the one that I'm the least concerned about is edge defender. If I do have to answer, I would probably say cornerback, even though I do like a lot of those young players. I would just love to know who is absolutely going to be that third starter.
So I would say, I think that's fair. My answer would be none as well. Mm-hmm. Like at that point, and it's not because I'm suddenly wowed by Juwan Bentley, Jelani Tavai, and Sione Takitaki, who are going to knock you out. But like they, again,
it's solid.
Right. It's solid. They can take care of their business, certain assignments there. Edge defender, though, has me a little bit more curious because if Matt Judon gets hurt again, I think you're basically in the same predicament that you were a year ago, which again, we're not just banking on him getting hurt, but also the opposite would be if Keon White does take this year to leap, or maybe he doesn't, because he was a player drafted in the second round for a reason. And I don't think I have an opponent, Dietrich Wise, who, you know, is a good NFL player, good youthful player. Scares me. Right. Josh Uche, clearly, when you can turn some attention to him, doesn't scare anyone. Anthony Jennings, excellent run stopper, first and second down. That's not winning football games in the modern era. So it's still a lot on Judon, where I think it's fair. Obviously, you need to bank on young players and developing them, and they've got good coaches in that area. But it's just, you know, I'm not banking on that in a way that I feel like someone's going to emerge at corner. Or you will have the linebackers will do enough. It's not a concern, but I think it's just something we might be taking a little bit for granted.
My counter argument to that would just be that, like, if Judon gets hurt, then they're in the exact same situation they were last year, and they were still a top 10 defense with those edge defenders in place. At cornerback, I know Patriots fans are going to lose their minds about this, but like they did lose defensive backs. They lost Miles Bryant, they lost Jalen Mills, they lost
Who was the first
Adrian
one?
Phillips. But I mean, like Miles Bryant was a starting cornerback.
I know. You and I are both high up in the Miles Bryant fan
and like
club.
That's obviously what Patriots fans are going to lose their mind about. But like he was a very solid slot cornerback that you could plug in at either slot or safety or wherever. Yeah. And now you're banking on that being Marcus Jones, who didn't stay healthy last year and hasn't found a definitive role on defense. Even last year to start the season, like Miles Bryant was starting over him. Mm-hmm. So clearly Bill Belichick and Steve Belichick liked what Miles Bryant had to offer over Marcus Jones. But that would be my counter argument there. Just that there's maybe less depth this season at safety and cornerback than there was last season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're a couple years away from Belichick confidently and comfortably announcing safety as the strength of the team.
Yeah.
Granted, it was Chris Berman who asked the question, so it's very different than Doug or I back in the day asking Bill a question. But safety depth is a little quieter there. It's just like the top 2 in the depth chart, I think, across the board, solid.
Yeah.
But as we know, injuries hit in a variety of different ways. All right, final thought on training camp stuff. We've talked about, you want to hammer home again, something that we did not hit on. It could be superfluous. It could be, I've said days that people should come down to. Again, July 31st, August 2nd, 3rd, the joint practice with the Eagles on the 13th, like padded practices, come on down. What's in your mind?
I want to see the reins taken off the rookie wide receivers. And we didn't really see that fully during the spring. I think that was a lot of like, these are rookies. We're not going to thrust them into action right away. Now's the time to do it because you need quality wide receivers out there, and they have the highest upside on the team. So I would like to see Jalen Polk, Javon Baker getting a ton of reps with the ones to see fully what they can do.
Yeah. Cosign on that. I would just say, come see it for yourself. Yeah. Like I say this as someone who drove up from Connecticut as a kid, 80 minutes to like go to a practice once or twice a summer, because the access is nothing like you would have in a game, but there's not as much distance. You can hear the players, you can see the pads. And when you go and watch and then read what we write, you can be like, oh, well, you missed this, because you feel like you had a different view, or whatever it might be. There's just universal hope, joy, even going back and reading the stuff that we had done last year to kind of prepare for this and where we could do better and what do we want to do for our training camp coverage. There was a lot of, the offensive line falls apart. They're in trouble again. Spoiler, it did. Yeah. But there was still a sense of this could be a much better team. And I don't think the Patriots are going to be outside of 6 wins this season. But if there's a time to feel that, not only just in your heart, but on the field and see it, training camp is it. So come on down. It's free. And I don't know. That's my pitch for Patriots.com if they wanted to spice this up and run it. No, there is. All right, he's Doug Kyed. He's got to go. I've got to do the same. That's it from Foxboro. It's Tuesday. Training camp kicks off tomorrow. Again, every practice at 11 a.m. Patriots will be off on Saturday. And then we'll be back Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday with 3 more practices. You will hear from me around then for what we've learned so far at training camp. Again, every single day, every single period, every single practice. So long.